or some of the seasoned purists of motorcycling, modern motorcycles are seen as a form of sacrilege. What with all the fancy electronic aids and plastic bits all over. And for a lot of these riders, the Triumph Bonneville range has provided a serious dose of retro motorcycling combined with modern engineering and reliability. However, with the current entry-level Bonneville, the Street Twin, more modern than ever before, does its larger sibling, the new T120, do a better job of retaining the classic essence of the original from the 60s? Its proper archetypal British bike looks certainly seem to suggest so, but a more thorough evaluation was undoubtedly in order. Take a close look at the new T120 and the lineage is quite apparent. There's a tasteful and well-balanced amount of chrome scattered all over the motorcycle. It still has that nice round headlight with an added Triumph logo over the bulb reflector. It also comes with a rather interesting LED daytime running light that forms a U-shape inside the bottom contour of the headlight. Not exactly retro, but it looks great, albeit a little unfinished. The metal front mudguard is held firmly in place by a sturdy metal bracket that displays an embossed Triumph logo. And staying true to the original T120 from the 60s and 70s, there's also an 18-inch rim up front with wire spoke wheels, followed by a 17-inch one at the rear. Swing a leg over the saddle and you're greeted by a modern version of a retro instrument cluster. There are the signature large twin analog dials for a speedometer and tachometer that fit snugly within a brushed metal bracket that looks ever so pleasing. The dials also contain telltale lights for ABS, Triumph traction control, TTC, engine warning and low oil. There are digital displays on the dials for the odometer, 2 trip meters, a fuel gauge, fuel consumption and distance to empty. This is one of the features a classic bike purist would probably shrug off, but there's no arguing with convenience. There's also a nicely tucked away USB charging socket under the seat that would simply add to that argument. Onto the design highlight of the T120, the bulbous metal tank looks just scrumptious. It's well sculpted and houses recesses with rubber pads for your knees. It doesn't scream for attention, it just sits there in all its authenticity, with a nice, chunky chromed Triumph logo. The fuel injectors on the other hand have been well shrouded to appear like the older, round slide carburetors. But I doubt this would fool our aforementioned purists. The seat is properly reminiscent of the 60s. It's a long, flattish seat that gives you ample space to move around and should be pretty comfortable on longer rides. This ends in a pretty thick, metal grab rail that really fits in well with the whole retro look. And let's not forget the twin, P-shooter exhausts that look exactly like they did in the 60s. The all-new 1200cc, liquid-cooled, parallel twin engine is nothing short of a gem. This is the same mill that sets the Thruxton now thumping but in a completely different state of tune. The T120 gets the high-torque, height, version, while the Thruxton R gets the high-power, HP, version. The T120's engine drills out a reasonable 80 horsepower of peak power at 6,550 revolutions per minute and a whole 105 Newton-meters of peak torque at 3,100 revolutions per minute. What this does translate to, is plenty of pulling power in every gear and rather linear power delivery. But this is something that can really throw you off guard. Linger in the lower rev range and you really enjoy the relaxed nature of the engine, with oodles of torque to amble about. Whack the throttle open, and once the tacho needle edges past the 3,100 revolutions per minute mark, speed starts to really build quickly. Even when testing out acceleration on rain-soaked roads, the T120 managed 0 to 100 km per hour in just 5.68 seconds. Not really something you'd expect from a motorcycle that looks like it should come equipped with a cup of English breakfast tea and maybe a crumpet. The 6-speed gearbox on the T120 feels very precise, although it's slightly clunky in the lower gears. But to maximize the potential of all that torque, it comes with fairly tall gear ratios, and you could easily see the speeder needle nudging on 90 km per hour in first gear alone. Despite the tallish gearing though, in fourth gear it can go from 40 to 60 km per hour in a scant 2.74 seconds, and even in sixth gear, the run from 70 to 100 km per hour in just 5.79 seconds. As they say, there's no replacement for displacement. What's also responsible for such delectable linear power delivery is a new 270-degree crankshaft layout, which also makes for a lovely burble from the twin pea shooter exhausts. It's certainly a symphony that fills you with the nostalgia of what parallel twin engines must have sounded like half a century ago. The T120's dose of modernity.